Welcome back to the Dave Gold Evolve podcast, where industry leaders in the spiritual dating and business world help you truly evolve your life. Now welcome to your host, Dave Gold.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Dave Gold Evolve podcast. We've got an amazing episode with Ash Borland. All right, Ash Borland is a personal branding expert, and he really is one. Okay, he has this podcast, Personal Branding 101. It woke me up to everything that was going on in the world of marketing and personal branding, especially. And something that really stood out was not only the amount of value that Ash brings to the table, but also the amount of vulnerability that Ash brings to the table. And he's gotten to the place where now he's posting live streams on his podcast, something that I'm not at that level yet. I've got so much to learn from Ash. So do you. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Dave, you're right, mate. I'm really, really excited to come on. I've been looking forward to coming on to this one for ages, since we had our first Zoom call, which feels like a lifetime ago.
It does. A lot of things have changed, and now we've got some better lighting, some better, video, and it's more appropriate to have you on at this time. So to kick us off, first, where are you in the world today?
I live in England, so I'm in the UK. I'm based out in Cambridge, so just anyone who knows where that is, just near London. I've born and bred here, and lived in London for a while before I moved back here again. I love it. It's a great place in the world.
Beautiful. So before we get into the personal branding rundown, the 101, let's hear a little bit of backstory on you and how you got into this field, because I know you have a really unique story and it didn't all start with branding.
Yeah, of course. So how I ended up here, I was talking about this recently with someone on a show, and I wanted to clip it because I thought, actually, that's a really great, it's a weird story. And when it puts together, it's the connect the dots kind of scenario. But I never thought I'd be in branding. But when I actually look back at it, it was what I always was doing, was personal branding, was looking at how people interact and how consumer behavior is. But I originally started off in performing arts. So I started off as a break dancer when I was about 15. And the only reason I became a break dancer, which is really strange, was because, again, coming back to branding, was at school, there was always the like Americans, you call it the soccer, in the football, there's the jocks. There was these brands, these people that had been pigeonholed into certain things, and I didn't really fit any. And I wanted to be so badly. So I was like, okay, well, I found my thing, which was breakdancing. And that took me on a world of adventures for about 15 through to about 21. And I ended up coming a fully qualified performer. I worked in the West End. I did loads of weird stuff as a singer, actor, dancer, which taught me loads about how to present myself. I was my only product, all of that weird stuff that at the time felt like, when I left it at 21, felt like what a waste of my life that I've just spent the last, however many years dedicated to what seemed to me like very vain metrics. It was all about, what do you look like? Does is everything? And I judged everything on the way things looked, and it's kind of what caused me to have a bit of a meltdown and leave, because I couldn't deal with it, the pressure of it. So I moved into finance, and real estate and finance. Started off in the real estate game, moved into the financing of it, set up my own business as a broker, and then started to understand why I was being successful as a broker was that this deep understanding of consumer behavior, the way I looked, the way I sounded, the way I interacted. It was all very heavily based on psychology, and started making videos around how to buy houses. And that's how I ended up here, which was a really, really weird way of getting there. But it was one of those moments where I can imagine, if it was a film, which is my not dramatic life, but if it was a film, it was like all of the planets aligned about 2 years ago, where it just went click. Like I was like, oh, I don't want to, can I swear on here or not? I don't want to swear.
Absolutely.
I was like, it's like, oh fuck, like that's why I did all of these things. Like and there's so much in there. I don't want to bore you to death with it, but there was so much stuff that looking back, even down to, I said this recently, in the UK, we have our system, our school systems were different. So year 7 would mean I was like 11 years old. So even down to being like 11, like I knew that if I made eye contact with a teacher, they wouldn't be able to tell me off. I discovered this. It was all these weird things that all now make sense about influence and persuasion. And even down to the point where my mum said she caught me crying when I was about 8 years old and said, and she was like, what's up? And I said, I don't know what I want to be, but I know that I want people to know who I am. And I was like, not as a famous person, but as revered in what I do. And so this personal branding seems to have been in my life from such a young age. And it's only the last 2 years that I kind of put a finger on it, which is amazing for mental health and for purpose.
That's interesting because I kind of feel like on my front, I was so rebellious to my name and to my upbringing and my culture. Okay, I didn't embrace my name and being like a Jewish boy and things like that. I wanted to change my last name. I wanted to do things like that. I wanted to go away from it. And then I started to see that it was either I take ownership of my life, okay, or I let it just eat me inside for the rest of my life. I can't run from it. I need to embrace who I am, the talents and the skills that I have. And if I'm able to do that, then the right people are going to come into my life. So let's get into personal branding. I know you've talked about how it's a bit of a buzzword, but in your opinion, what is personal branding in 2020?
Of course. So personal branding, you say, is a buzzword. Personal branding, what I found with personal branding, which has always been a thing that is the bane of my life, really, is it is a buzzword. People think it's, I hear a lot of photographers tell me what it is. I hear a lot of digital marketers tell me what it is. And the truth is, and all due respect to every one of them, it's its own thing. So personal branding is purely reputation management. So in other words, it's controlling a narrative. And I love what you said there, Dave, about like embracing who you are. And it's embracing who you are, yes, but embracing who you are and then not publicizing it in a focused way that's what personal branding is. It's about projecting it to the world in the narrative you want people to know. And I refer to it in more recent stuff when I work with people as what I call a pigeonhole effect, which is, it goes right back to what I said about the jocks and the things, is we pigeonhole people. We make people go, well, you are I think me and you spoke about this before, you're the dating guy, or and you're so much more than that. But what I realized when I started to dive deep into this is, if you become one thing to one person in this 2020 kind of world where the attention span now of a consumer is 8 seconds, just to bear that in mind, that's 8 seconds. That means that a goldfish is 9.
How many people already clicked out of this podcast?
Exactly. I mean, how crazy is that? Like, that's what I mean. Like, it's 8 seconds. Goldfish is 9 seconds. And since 2000, we have now, in 2000, it was 12 seconds. So the internet and social media has eroded our attention span by a third. So it just shows how crazy that is. So if I can't figure out what you do, and this is what personal branding is, if I can't figure out what you do in 8 seconds, then it's very, very hard for me. I'll go and find somebody who I can. Doesn't always mean that they're the best or the worst. I can figure out what you do. I just got off a discovery call with a client who's just signed up, and that was the exact same thing. Jump on their profile and say, she said, what do you think? I said, I think you're very impressive, but I have no idea what you do. And
okay, or you're going to get certain people who are going to consciously brand themselves in a way that is more mysterious, okay? That people are going to jump on them and they're going to be like, what does this guy do? He's got a picture. I was talking to a guy the other day who actually was really into the dating niche from Australia, and he's got a picture of himself giving a lecture, just got his Instagram and, profile name in his bio. I clicked on his Instagram. I still didn't understand who he was. Yeah. All right. I didn't realize he had a YouTube channel. I get on a call with him And then all of a sudden, boom, it hits me, and the effect is much more. So I also think it depends on what stage you're at in your branding, but also your mentality when it comes to it. Now, what was similar to what you're saying is that he had a distinguishing mark.
Yeah.
Okay. He actually had a reputation that he built up there was some intrigue there. Yeah. It differentiated him from other people's profiles that I've been to. And this is something that is really the reason why I decided to talk about personal branding in the coaching that I do, you know, whether it's on a business or dating front, because too many times now I see profiles on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn of people, and there's no reason for me to continue reading their content. It's not that the content is not engaging, it's that it's not unique.
Completely agree. So what you're saying there, which is, and this is what actually the example you've given is exactly what I mean, is that I think that the people don't understand is that it's that one differentiating factor. So that guy has a reputation. I haven't seen his profile, but as you say, like there's a reason. So there's an intent behind why you have carried on going, which he knows. That's everything is a funnel. And everything is crafted to create this idea that I get you on a Zoom call. Now, it's exactly the same with that.
Could be a Zoom call. It could be get you into a group. It could be read your ebook. It could be any reason why. And that's if you have a purpose behind it. Some people are just blindly throwing darts at the board. Okay. And I've been there before as well. But if you have a purpose as to what you're trying to achieve with your, client management from step A to step Z, okay, you have to understand that you have control over that.
100%. You've got to control the narrative, and that's what personal brand is that you understand there's this ecosystem around it, and you have to understand that everything you do from the moment that person jumps on your profile, the moment that person even looks at a comment you've written, the moment that person sees you in the street, it's not just online, it's sees you in the street, especially so dating world, everything has to be, it's like what they call soft call to actions, but it's bringing them to the next part of the puzzle, Now, the problem that many people do with personal brands that they don't realize is they either go throw up everything. So it's like, this is what I do. And it's like, okay, that's chaotic. Or they don't have any form of focus at all and say they don't need it. Well, the problem with that is every single thing, everybody needs a personal brand because you've all got one. So it's that real interesting concept that people don't get. And that's what I like with it is you don't have to show the world everything you do. Like as me and you have spoken about before is most people don't have a clue what I do until I get someone on a Zoom call, which is my goal. My desired goal is to get them to a Zoom call, of which 80% of my content is free. So 80% of my content, only 20% is where I actually make any money. 80% of my content is free. Only then is it's like, oh, I've got this transformation program. And actually I do a podcast and I do a YouTube channel and I do this and I do that. And that, as you said, if I went on LinkedIn or I went on Facebook and I went, do you know that I post all of this stuff? I do all of this stuff. I'm a public speaker. People would be like, what the fuck is that guy doing? Whereas if I'm just one thing, I'm just a personal branding guy all the time. And when they get them on my show, and that's why I don't really talk about my performing arts unless I'm in a concept where it's long form, because it's not relevant. But then it's massively relevant once and as you said, it's impressive then. And I get people go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And it's part of my ecosystem, which is my story. And that's how
do you want to keep that to yourself, or do you want to share a little bit of that right now? What is your personal brand, Ash Borland?
My personal brand. Yeah. So my personal brand is built around my 4 key areas, which is for me is to be a thought leader in the personal branding space, which is talking about embracing individuality. So being who you are and unapologetically who you are. Now my brand that's my kind of what I call like the gooey stuff. That's my key areas. That's inside. You then have to look at the outside. So then you go to what we call your ecosystem, which is these 5 areas that fly around you. Now, for me, those 5 areas are physical identity, digital identity, story, network, and social proof. So for me, my personal brand is my physical identity is that I wear, I have a very jarring look. I shave the side of my head. I look a bit like a Viking. I've got like, I'm covered in tattoos. I do swear. I work with very, very successful people. I work with professional football players, rugby players. I've worked with CEOs, but I'm very jarring. So my idea, that's my physical identity, which I then pass on into my digital identity, which is colors like red, very powerful in your face. This is what people don't realize, the amount of stuff that is inside it. It's very red. It's in your face, and I also want my personal brand to be overbearing. So it's designed to be so much content that you can't keep up with it. It's designed to be created to the point where you think, "Fucking hell, how is he still doing that?" That is by architect by design, as opposed to me looking like I'm not doing that. My story, performing artist, went into finance, hated his life, like embraced that individuality and started to release this inner kind of, like I say, I have a bodysuit. All of this stuff is the stuff I want you to know. What I don't want people to know, which I open about, and then there's like your network. I interview lots of people and I do all this stuff. But what I don't share with people is I'm a massive Star Wars nerd and I spend my life watching Star Wars. I used to play video games all the time and was a sponsored video gamer. All of these things are not relevant to my story. They're not relevant to my personal brand. But there might be tools in a toolbox that will be useful if a client is really into Star Wars. Does it? I know, but I don't tell the world because that doesn't fall in line with this ecosystem I've created. And I watch that with you. I love your personal brand, Dave. It's one of those ones. I actually mentioned you on a live. I don't know if you caught it or not when I was talking about you, because I do love your personal brand because I think there's not many people I watch who I'm interested in. I don't actually watch many people who I'm interested in because I can re-engineer it. So I'm looking at it going, oh, okay, cool, that's fine. But your personal brand, whether it's intentional, it's very intriguing. You talk about the intrigue side of things.
What do you mean by that?
I find you intriguing. I'm trying to, when I first spoke to you, I was trying to work out what you did. And I know after speaking to you, there's so much more to what you do than what people think you do. I think and that's what I said.
This is exactly what I'm saying about that last example, that you attract like-minded people. So the kind of people that I like to work with, okay, in terms of to be like a mentor or a guide for myself, I like it when it's not so clear what they do. And then I discover what they do and it's like, all right, there's something down this rabbit hole. We've got to discover it. There's even one guy on Facebook who he's got pictures of Darth Vader and Star Wars and stuff like that. And behind it all is like a whole world of consciousness and stuff like that. All right. So for myself as well, I like it when people come to me and when they say in the first message, wait, you do a podcast and you're running a mastermind, like what is this all about? And that's what I love.
I find that interesting. So I spend my entire free time when I'm not working with clients, sadly, like I watch anything that I can watch. I don't really like watching stuff, but so my wife's obsessed with the Kardashians. I don't know why, but I find it, anything when I watch it, I'm like hooked as to how they're doing it. What are they doing? I analyze everything. And that's what I found with you. And it is, you're attracted to the type of people you like. So you're saying that you like that type of intrigue.
I like there to be a little intrigue, a little mystery. All right. A little bit like, who is this guy and why is he reverse engineering his business the way that he does, rather than falling into what I hate, which is the cookie cutter. Okay. I help entrepreneurs get their ideal girlfriend in 90 days. All right. When in reality, a lot of those guys come to me and I say, but man, you're so unique. You're from this country. You do this in your free time. Okay. You study this in university. Why don't you highlight that? And that will make you stand out from the crowd. And they go, but I'm just following the system. I'm crunching the numbers. And as I talked about with Dave Green on this podcast, you can choose to make, your sales and your marketing a numbers game. All right. Or you can choose to be a little bit more strategic and spiritual in your approach, depending on which way you want to go. All right. And if you take that latter route, in my estimation, there's going to be less resistance. There's going to be less rejection and things are going to come to you more naturally. The people that you really want are going to appear, and you're not going to have to be selling. Instead, you're going to be connecting.
I couldn't agree with you more, Dave. I couldn't agree with you more. That is so. If someone comes to me with numbers and spreadsheets, it's the first thing I do is run a mile, because I believe from an effective personal brand, it needs to be really coming from I'm a very spiritual guy. I don't put it through my content because it's personal to me. I think it needs to come from a place of you. It has to come purely from you. This is where I talk about embracing individuality as your unique selling point. It's the only thing you have. So this is what people think. You talk maybe in a dating. I don't really understand the dating side of it. I'm probably not the best at that type of stuff, but it's the only thing that you have that's unique to you. If you are trading on this idea that you are a personal trainer, you are a CEO, everyone has that. Everyone has. So what I like to talk about people is how you can, and this is what my whole program is about. Everything I do is about is how do you take what you are and you take that cookie cutter and you infuse that into the thing you have. It's individuality, not originality. How do you bring your individual self to every single thing you do, so that that individual self becomes part of this brand, which means that when you walk in the room, people go, oh, that's Dave walking in the room. Do you know he does this? He does that. Or your story starts to echo around you. And the only way that's going to happen, if you think about these iconic personal brands in our life, is they were larger than life because they fully embraced who they were instead of pretended to be. They can find that stuff. Look at someone like Steve Jobs, absolute bell end, but I love him. Like he's one of my favorite. I've read his book. Well, I listened to audiobooks, I haven't read it. I've listened to his audiobook 3 times. Bear in mind, that's a 25.5-hour book. So he's incredible because he was unapologetically himself. And that's what I think. And I don't know, you tell me the dating game, but what's attractive? And I love the word attractive because people don't get this. That's so much more than just a sexual level. When you build a strong personal brand, you're attractive to people. People are attracted to you like a moth to a flame. And that's where you talk about this intrigue. The intrigue, there's 2 types of intrigue. There's intrigue like, who is that person? What are they? Like the mystery. That is very right. Good personal brand should have mystery. The problem you have, though, is if you have the other one where it's like, what the fuck does that guy do? There's a big difference between, oh my God, who's that guy? And what the hell does he do? I have no idea.
There's definitely a fine line. Okay. And it depends on where you are in your journey.
Yeah.
All right. And as you know, as we well know, like your tribe will get your vibe.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're unique and you are yourself and you own it, you don't need to be selling yourself to the masses. What you need to create is a small, loyal following.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know Seth Godin was talking about this. I'm going to bring him up later on in this podcast about how before you can sell something to 1 million people, okay, you need to be able to sell it to 5 or to 10, okay, and to make sure that they can embrace it, that you can work with it on a small scale, all right. And also that guy that I was mentioning before, when we had a conversation, he said to me that if you can get 1,000 loyal followers, all right, in your business, it's like the law of numbers, that you will be moving in an amazing direction with your brand and with your business. It's funny you brought up Steve Jobs because I'm actually reading right now the one book that he had on his iPad that he passed out 500 copies at his funeral. I'll leave that one up for the listeners to go and
go and find it. Yeah. I know what you mean. He's brilliant. He's an incredible human being. And I love him.
One of the reasons that we brought you on this podcast today was to talk about reputation management. Okay. And that's going to lead us into not giving a fuck what other people think about your reputation. So take it away. Reputation management and not giving a fuck about others.
Yeah, of course. So not giving a fuck about others is a funny one. I know that's one that you sent me across on this, on the message saying, I've listened to this podcast, haven't listened for a while, and I love it. This is really interesting to understand. So when you first when you decide you're going to do something new, first of all, the advice that we are given, you said something about your tribe gets your vibe, which I love that saying so much. And this idea of not caring what other people think is a really weird paradox, because when you hear a lot of people say, don't give a fuck what people think, which is what I will say, it's actually impossible to not give a fuck what people think, because we're tribe animals. So when you talk about get your tribe, you should care about what people think in your tribe. So I want to clarify that before it then, because there's a lot of social media out there that goes, don't give a fuck. If you don't care what anyone thinks, you'll be an absolutely lonely person and most likely a psychopath. So you do need to find people who are your vibe.
You were using the Miley Cyrus and Donald Trump examples in reputation management. So for
100%.
example, like Donald Trump, all right, with his reputation, still wants the conservative base to like him.
Donald Trump, he came up on a podcast when I was talking about this. He is a living example of this type of stuff, is that he goes deep into his niche, into his demographic, like whether you like him or hate him. And I do not get political on any side.
We're not going to.
We're not going. Well, I just don't ever. Anyone ever ask me, I'm like, no, go away. I'm not going to talk about that. But from a personal brand perspective, the reason he won the first time was his brand was so strong, because it was clear. People like clarity, and he didn't give a fuck about those people because he cared so much about these people. And I think that's something that all personal brands need to have, is you need to understand, and we'll talk, I say, about the whole concept of not caring. There's so many things you can think of, but that whole thing of you can't please everybody.
No, and that wasn't only you that said that. I heard that on another podcast as well, that Donald Trump won the election because his personal brand was much stronger than Hillary Clinton's.
That's it. And I think, yeah, his personal brand was stronger than. The funny thing with Donald Trump, I think, with his last election, was his personal brand is also the reason he lost.
Exactly.
Because it wasn't actually, this is what people don't even realize, is there's no such thing as bad publicity. The guy's personal brand was so big that it was a vote for Trump or a vote against Trump. Yep. It wasn't even, it was like Biden who. And that's as an example of how strong a personal brand can be. He is a living, breathing. I always say David Beckham is probably one of the biggest ones. I think Trump now, the guy's personal brand was so big, he ran the biggest, freest country in the world from personal brand. Like, it's just bizarre how quick it is. So, and there's a negative as well on that side, but it's interesting. So with this, like you say, when you decide you can't please everybody. And so that's what a lot of people go wrong with their personal brand when they're starting out, is they're worried about offending, but you have to create a polarization. You have to. So if enough people hate you, then enough people will love you. It's a badge of honor to get your first hater. So don't ever feel like that's a bad thing. Like when you get a hater, that's like, yes, finally, I'm getting an emotional response. But one thing that you have to remember when you start out on this personal brand journey of not giving a fuck, is you have to really remember and put things into perspective. And that's what the podcast episode was about, was you have to really think that there's a reasons why a lot of people might not like what you do when you first start out. I mean, I can imagine, I'd love to hear with you with this, Dave, is being someone in the dating side. Obviously, that's your speciality with lots of other things, but that's obviously what I would put as your top of your content pillar. The lens through which you see the world is through these eyes of everything else. That, I can imagine, gets some bad rap. I can imagine it will get people love it and hate it, because it's they don't get what they don't understand. They don't like what they don't understand. But I can imagine that does cause people to go, what is that? Now, people...
and because of that, you've brought it up a few times, but recently in the past few months, I've moved more into, okay, I'm not necessarily a coaching business or dating. All right. I'm coaching you on how to improve your personal brand based off of authenticity, and also start to love yourself and work on that mindset and inner guidance system. And those two combined, the inner and the outer, is going to elevate your dating and your business life. It's just like a veil. And then behind it, you've got all this opportunity and potential to grow.
Well, that's something that's interesting with you, because that's what I mean is when I first met, that's what I talk about pigeonhole dating. But you're so right, is that this is what people don't get with the personal branding. Same thing, is that actually it's personal development. It's personal development. It all comes back to personal development, all of it. but it's the which angle you, and this is called content pillars. It's the lens through which you're looking at it. But what people don't get is, as you said then, if you work on yourself and you work on that, what you're saying, like your inside, your outside, you get comfortable with yourself, your authenticity, it will have a ripple effect. And if that desired outcome is to be more confident with women, that's going to work. If that desired outcome is to win more, I get it with people. I want to generate more leads with my company. That's going to work. But guess what? It also has, like you said, the other effects. It does so many other things. But it's interesting, like you said, it polarizes. But what's really interesting to remember is people, when you first start out, that's what I was trying to say at the beginning, was when you first start out, you're going to get a lot of pushback always. Whenever you decide that you're now going to take, because your personal brand always exists, but it's when you're going to decide you're going to take control of it is a different thing. It's always there, but it's like grabbing the bull by the horns. When you wake up that day and go, okay, now is the day I'm going to start really carving out who I am to the public. When you do that, you're going to get a lot of people, and you'll be shocked by the people who will appear who won't support you. That's normally what happens. And this is was myself. I had to do this myself, where you have to start to reframe it in your head. And your family usually are the first people to give you a bit of a, oh. And one thing I said in that podcast about it, which I would like to highlight with everybody, and I say this when I talk to people, is when you decide to take a risk, which is a risk, you are taking a risk by deciding to change your direction of your life, really. Your family only want you to be safe. And we're hardwired as tribal beings. Safe isn't what we like, doesn't mean happy. Safe doesn't mean happy. Safe doesn't mean fulfilled. Safe means safe. You're stuck in that job. Everything's okay. I know you're making a living. And that's why you might, if you ever have this where your family members, when you go to them and you may have had it where you go, I'm going to go and start this new venture. I'm going to lose weight. And they go, oh no, you're fine just the way you are. Bear that in mind. That's part of this personal brand growing pains, is that you have to understand, one, don't get ever angry at your family for that, because all they do is care, but they just don't really know how to show it because it's tribal. The other thing you then have that's the family side you will get. I still get it now. I get it from my family, and they're very loving and supporting, but you still get it. It's built into them, and it's built into everyone. The other thing you're going to get is you're going to get people who are jealous of you. So there's three things with it. You get your family who want to protect you. You've got people who will be jealous. Fuck them. Don't worry about that. Like, just keep doing it. Drown them in that jealousy. It's not your problem. So don't take that on. And then the other thing you're going to get, which is the one I found the hardest when it comes to starting your brand, is people may not get it. They might not get what you're doing. And that is okay. We're saying about not giving a fuck. I think too many people get caught up in this idea of wanting to try and tell everyone what, and I like this about your intrigue. I keep bringing back that because I find that quite intriguing, is that it's not your job. If I came to you and talk about personal branding and you don't get it, that's not my problem.
It's funny you say that, because this guy who tried to like publicly shame me, okay, when I was, just getting started, labeled me as a business coach. And I was like, wait, I'm not a business coach. Like, I haven't started any, 7-figure businesses. I don't do the whole business coaching, but there are a lot of aspects in the branding that can come off that way. It's just, I wouldn't necessarily label myself that. So when he does, it kind of feels like, well, you're trying to attack me, but you don't even know what you're attacking. Yeah. Okay. With the family example, I was just listening to Tony Robbins on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and Tony stops at a certain point and he says to Tim, all right, Tim, close your eyes. And I want you to think, which parent, okay, were you searching from love more for, when you were growing up? And I took that second too. Yeah. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, yeah, like my dad, I was searching more for love from him. Okay. Because my mom just kind of gave it to me. But with my dad, it was like I had to earn it. It was like that pressure. Like, if you're not performing, then that love's not going to come. Oh, yeah. And even into this year, when I start, doing what I'm doing now, and it's like, but where's your diploma or certificate? Okay. Or how are you going to make this work? And it's like, but that's not how you make it work. You make it work with blind faith, with going all in. Okay. If you need to pivot, if you need to change up direction, if you no longer feel like you're on your purpose, that's fine. But it is just funny in that sense that your family loves you and supports you, but may not be doing what is most supportive to
Yeah.
you in that moment. And that is why, you know, I see it time and time again. Okay. I go to start to work with a guy and, you know, he's actually from the UK. And then he comes to me and he goes, listen, I consulted with my family and I'm going to go in a different direction. Okay. Or, you know, a girl I hear, you know, go and work with another girl and then she consults with her mom. And it's like, nah, I'm going to get coached by my mom. And it's like, that's fine. But your parents are doing that to protect you.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to tell you what you really need to hear. They're not going to slap you in your face and light a fire under your ass. All right. They're going to do what they think is supportive of you, whether that's save the money. Okay. You know, I'll just teach you what I know, which may be old school knowledge.
Yeah.
It may not be the knowledge of today of TikTok. I've been learning more about Telegram.
Yeah.
All right. And you know about these platforms better than I do. You're really getting into TikTok.
Yeah.
So
No, that's the thing I would say to you that I did that thing you just said then about visualizing. And that was about, and I did the same thing. And it's really, and it is my dad. It was my dad. And actually that was something, I don't know if I said it on the podcast, I'll say it here, is that was a real pivotal moment in my life. It was, and it's been a journey over the last 3 years. I love my father very much. He knows about it. I talk about this all the time. He finds it very funny. My dad was like director, board level in finance, massive in finance, very successful guy, retired at 50, massive pension, very, you know, and that's very hard to live up to when you're an artistic kind of, you know, guy that bounces across the walls and can't hold a job down. That's quite a hard thing to. I'm a creative, and I am, and that's how I ended up in finance. Now, a real penny drop moment for me happened. Our relationship has always been very good, but very strained, really weird. Like, he doesn't quite get me. I don't quite get him. We're very, very close. You know, I mean, we're very close. So we'll sit and have a beer and we'll chat and we'll do this. But everything is always like, when I was a performer, everything would be related back to being football. He'd be like, oh, it's like being in football. And it'd be like, and constantly. Now, for me, the penny drop moment was I'd spent my entire adolescent and early adult life trying to do everything I could, and he was the best one with it, to make him happy, to make him proud, to show him that I could be a functional man like he was. And I remember we went to a comedy night, and we were sat there at this comedy night, and I was a mortgage advisor at the time, and I just joined a company, a firm that he was, funnily enough, on the board for, and he was saying something, and it was this light bulb moment where I was like, fuck, you would never be my client, ever. So why the fuck am I trying to impress you?
This is so funny. My dad sent me a message on WhatsApp the other day going, you got to change that post. Like, it makes no sense. And I go, I am so glad you don't think it makes any sense, because you are the opposite of the kind of person that I'm trying to talk to. If only you could understand, you know, if only.
That was, and exactly that. And that was that moment. And I remember sitting there, and I remember getting back, and I was speaking to my wife, and I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? And it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his, it was my fault. It was me. I'd put this relationship. And this is what the real start of this kind of personal brand as to who I was started to come out then, because I was like unapologetically thinking, I'm never going to please my dad, because, and he doesn't, and he even joked about it. And now we're saying he doesn't have a clue what I do. He works, he's always here. He always helps. He always does this. He finds it funny. He's very proud. But he said to me, he said, I gave up trying to please him, which then, when you've got this person on a pedestal, and this is what I talk about, like, when you realize this, when you've got this person on a pedestal who's the ultimate alpha male provider, that all of a sudden I was like, and I said to him, I said, I will be as successful as you, but I'm never going to get there the way you got there. But so I have to go my own way and do it my way. And as soon as I did that, the respect from him was massive. But also then I was like, well, why do I give a fuck about anybody's opinion at that point? You know, because that's what, when we talk about family, that took me years to get my head around. Years and years. And I think that's what you say with your dad. It's so interesting with that. that, my mum always gave me that they're always great. But now, because of that, I'm like, if someone comes on and they're not my client, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's not a problem. We can agree to disagree. It's okay. Off you go. But before then, it was always such a big deal.
For me, when someone comes on, we get on a call and I realize I don't really think this is going to be a long-term experience. What I love about what I've created is that I've created a network, okay, also with the interviews that I've done, where I see who are the heart conscious mentors, who are the heart conscious high earners that I can connect this person to, that they're going to, find commonality and they can grow with. Okay. Yeah. Jump back to, you said putting someone on a pedestal. Well, it wasn't really me, putting my dad on a pedestal, because I think I realized I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to go in that direction per se. But getting into this year, becoming even like a micro influencer, okay, kind of thought leader in my niche, for example, I saw that I was putting a lot of people on pedestals, okay, who had businesses, who had brands that I admired, that I followed, that I invested in. And that was holding me back from building my own, from actually starting, because I kept saying to myself, I don't know as much as them. Yeah. My content's not going to be as high quality. How can I compete, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of, could be average John or Joe or Sally, or it could be, a coach that has gotten started is still feeling that heat. And that, it kind of leads us into our next point, which I'd like you to clarify why someone should go down this road or this path of building their personal brand.
If you build your personal brand, and I agree with you on that, well, firstly, we put people on a pedestal, you'll be blown away. And I think it's probably the same for you, Dave, is as my podcast I've got some insane guests coming scheduled. We've recorded up to March, some insane guests coming on. And what's blown me away is these people who we put on pedestals. The bar is quite low when you start to realize that you can, as you said, you put these people up. And so if you are anyone who's listening to this, who's starting out on their journey, if you apply enough intent and enough intention behind why you want to do it and you want it enough, you can get there quite quick. And why personal brand is so important. I had a guest on, Philip Van Dusen, who's like a branding expert. And he said, and I love this, he said, one word, personal brand is insurance. And I was like, oh, I like that. And it is, he said, when you create a personal brand, you are ensuring your own destiny, so that wherever you go and whatever you do, people will know who you are. In other words, if your business or my business failed tomorrow, it doesn't matter, because Ash Borland and Dave Gold have brand equity. And if you're listening to this and you're a listener and you're thinking, oh, I don't, that's not for me. This came from the guy who was VP of PepsiCo. He was VP of branding at PepsiCo. And he said, my entire identity was tied up in a business card. And the moment I lost my job or left my job, I had nothing. And that's what he said about the insurance. And that's why personal brand is so important in today's world, with COVID, with everything that's happening, is that when you build something around you that belongs to you, it's your little piece of the world, no one can take that from you. Which means, and I don't know about yourself, I probably would be with you, Dave, is that actually I know if I wanted to get a job tomorrow, if I put a post out on LinkedIn saying I'm looking for a job, people would come. I'd get a job. I don't need the job. I don't want the job. I couldn't think of anything worse than being employed again. But at the same time, that's insurance. Your name carries weight. You're a micro, nano. There's micro, nano, influencer tiers, all this stuff. You're a micro influencer. And that means that people would want to work with you because your name brings clout. Now, if you do that, and I say to people all the time, if you're not going to do it for you, do it for your family. Do it for somebody, so that you're building something that now, with coronavirus, of so many people who have lost their jobs, how are you going to be picked out of the rest of the people? How? Well, the only way is it's not the skills, it's the brand. It's the, who are you? And I know that. And that's something I would say, why is it so important in 2020? And it's only going to get more and more important as the years roll on, because technology is eating away at every service-based job imaginable. And this is what I love about what you do, and it's like same as I do, is teaching and education is kind of the final frontier that has been very much looked upon as negative. Coaching, consulting, very negative for many years. It's, oh, coach, you're a coach, are you blessed? The world is changing where it is now implementation from specific figureheads. That's what's going to be valuable. The information isn't valuable. It's the person who delivers the information that's the value.
Before this year, how many people wanted to hop on a coaching call that was through Zoom? How many people wanted to listen to an interview episode where two people were in different countries in the world? And now it's become commonplace. Yeah. We can't go outside and travel like we used to. But at the same time, I think we also realize that you don't need to in order to get the value, in order to get the benefit, okay? Some of my best mentors don't want to do a Zoom call with me. We just do a messenger audio because they say, it's not about seeing me, it's about hearing me. It's about listening to the words and internalizing them, all right?
Great.
So we've talked about what is a personal brand. We've talked about reputation management, okay? And then how do you, why you should build one, okay? So you've decided that you want to build a brand. Now it's time to figure out what your niche is, okay? So let's talk about, this very important subject that I think even I sometimes, lose sight of the niche, okay? And you talked about this as well, I think recently, about how it was one of the biggest flaws that you saw looking back was that you were too scattered, okay? You were catering to too many people. So what does it mean to find your niche, okay? And how should someone go about doing that?
So yeah, niche is a really interesting topic. It's one of these, I go through months where I like focus on one thing and I know them all and then I try to get deeper. So I keep learning more about it. So niche is a word, a bit like I say, a buzzword. The word niche is now thrown around. I feel your pain with this, Dave, because it gets so thrown around that it gets to the point where I'm like, what is it?
It's not only that the word niche gets thrown around, it's that, that pain that you felt that I'm good at this, I'm good at that. I want to be doing so many different things. But if you, spread your cards too thin, all right, you're not able to focus on the hand that you were dealt.
100%. And that's the problem. So the thing when I work with people on this, and I talk about niche quite a lot, is niche, everything is about gaining clarity. Everything is about gaining clarity. The more clear you are, the more on what you want and what you need. So your goals, your mission, your vision, your desires, the more clear you are on that, then the more effective you're going to execute on that. Now, as you've said, the problem I always found with niche, and it seems to be, I definitely think it's me and you said it was a similar problem for you when we spoke last time, is you're good at a lot of things. You like doing a lot of things. So you want to do everything. You do need to pick a niche, but niche is more where people go wrong with niching is they either go too broad or they go too deep. So they go too broad or too narrow.
I think you said it before. Industry is not your niche.
Exactly. So industry is not your niche. Very true. So industry, so that's very, very good. So industry is not your niche. That's just your industry. But mine, so for example, branding. So we're in coaching. Our industry is coaching. It's not branding, it's coaching. We're in the coaching industry. Within that, then you've got your life coaches, your business coaches, your all these different things. And that is your niche. So what is it that you want to be known for? Now, you've said recently you've moved that from, you said just then you moved the dating to the more, is more of a specific kind of personal branding, really. You're moving into personal branding, which is
self-love and personal branding are the two pillars of the coaching that I offer right now in my mastermind.
That exactly. So you've niched on that. So you're clear on that. Now that understanding that is your niche and that's what you want. That's the hardest bit, because what a lot of people will do is they'll go, and that's also your ideal client. It's knowing what you do and do not offer as well. That's the other thing, is very new businesses, new brands. They really get themselves caught up in a mess where they go, yeah, I'll do that. I can do that. Yeah, I'll do that. I can do that. Only offer one thing. So I only have my transformation program. I have a transformation program, and that's what I do. It's very binary. Within the program is very flexible. So obviously I can do whatever I want, working with so many different people in different capacities. But the niche, the product, I play in this area that I know because I'm the best at it. And that's what people need to understand. Now, the thing that goes very wrong with niche, to go the other end, which is what I went very deep on recently, and it's an episode coming out soon, is people confuse niche marketing with niche products. This is the Achilles heel of pretty much all underperforming coaching businesses and consultancies and businesses in general, is they misconfuse, like say, niche marketing with niche products. So niche products, niche marketing is marketing and pushing a specific service or product to a specific target audience. Okay. But niche products is creating a specific product for a specific audience. Hugely unadvisable. So what I mean by that is your methods, your masterminds could most likely, from I heard you, apply to people from different careers, they can apply to anybody. The teachings are the same. Now, if you wanted to get more CEOs, all you have to do is market that product suitable for CEOs. This is how you scale a personal brand business. And this is where people go very wrong. Whereas if you created, and Apple is a great example of this, Apple don't create iPhones for chiropractors and then iPhones for, personal trainers. They create an iPhone and they target market people with that product. This is what people don't realize, because the biggest thing with niche is people are scared about scaling it. How do I make more money? How do I take it? Well, with you, silly it sounds, if your niche originally, your niche marketing was the dating thing, but now you've expanded and you've grown, which means your teachings, your product is still massively relevant to so many more people than that niche market that you had. But because you haven't created a niche product that is purely designed for one thing, you are now able to grow. You're now able to evolve. You're now able to start to find these things, and you'll find as your business grows that that product will help serve so many different people because your teachings. Big mistake, and it's a mistake I made massively, and I'm happy. Everything I say, I make all these mistakes. I was doing niche products. I was in niche products for so long.
What was an example of one of your niche products?
So my niche product, I created when I was in mortgages. That was my niche product. My niche product was I created a system for first-time buyers. So this is where I was a first-time buyer specialist. That's niche product. And I'll tell you why, because I had two businesses running on tandem. I had a mortgage business and I had this business, and they were both doing very well. But funnily enough, pre-COVID, this wasn't as viable because people were like, well, why do I need that? I had the odd client here and there. And post-COVID, it's complete opposite. But it was, I created this business of first-time buyer niche. That's niche product. Everything I did was about helping first-time buyers. Over here in the UK, coronavirus came and they removed all products available for people on mortgages under the over 85%. So if you wanted 90% deposit, like if you wanted 90%, 95% mortgage, which is all the first-time buyer products, they disappeared. They're still not here now. They don't exist. So these things that overnight, my entire business, so I'd built a personal brand around it, done very, very well. Entire business was no longer viable, still wouldn't be viable now, wasn't viable.
This is like the business that I was working in last year, where I traveled around the world, 17 cities in 14 months, doing business development for luggage storage networks. Okay. So no longer were people traveling with their luggage. Okay. No longer were the cafes and bars and restaurants, okay, or hostels or hotels for that matter, willing or open or able to store some traveler, which was non-existent, their bag.
Yeah.
So the whole industry completely disappeared. And only the businesses that are, that are still going to be doing this have either lost a lot of money, or they just kind of like are blindly just going at it right now. They had to change, and a lot of them haven't, which is
Look
crazy.
at that. Look at how many businesses. This is what I mean by niche products, niche marketing. The amount of alcohol places in the UK pivoted and started making hand sanitizer gel was crazy. That's niche marketing. Sustainable businesses. I love this saying in school. We in England in primary schools we used to sing a song called "The Wise Man Builds His House Upon the Rock." I've never heard it before, but it was "The Wise Man Builds His House Upon the Rock," and then it's like, "And the foolish man builds his house upon the sand." This is when the rain comes down, the floods came in, and the house on the sand went flat. And I love that song because it's so true. And what's really very scary with personal branding, you want to build everything, and everything is when you niche, make sure you're niching on the rocks. Make sure you're niching in an area that is transferable. So you said you're not a business coach, but you're only not a business coach, Dave, because you don't identify as one. That's all. Where your product could be tailored and changed to be business if it needed to be, if it ever interested you, just the same as mine. And this is what people don't get. The tagline is the same. It's the same old bottle of shit inside. It's just a different sticker on the front. And that is what you need to build a business like from your personal brand.
You have no idea how many dating coaches end up turning into business coaches because of the brand that they've built. And once they've garnered a certain level of reputation and success in their industry, they're able to dovetail and pivot into something else. Okay. And with that being said, you've talked, so let's talk about this foundation that you're building your business on. You talked about becoming a content creator. Become a content creator first. Yeah. Don't sell advice, give advice. Okay. Yeah. You talked about how Gary Vee and Simon Sinek and some of those guys, that was kind of like surface layer stuff. All right. But what we're talking about is something much more. All right. Once you've built that foundation, how you can, start to grow, how you can start to scale. But with that being said, why do you want to add value? Why do you want to come on a podcast like this and add value for 60 or 70 minutes to a unknown audience that you've never talked to before?
So you add value, which is the term used all the time. You're right. Become a content creator first is so important. Add value. The reason why we add value is to do with a thing called reciprocity. So reciprocity, which is a really hard word to say when you have a slight lisp. So reciprocity is actually the influence principle. It's an influence principle set out by Robert Cialdini, which is the reason why we add value. So what people don't get is that they hear this thing of I should give, and Gary, as you said, Gary Vee, Simon Sinek, so good, incredible practitioners, and they all know this stuff, but their audience is very broad, so they have to keep it simple. But it's about adding reciprocity. So reciprocity is if we feel obliged to give something back if we have received something. So it's why we work on the whole thing of a gift. If I give you a gift, Dave, I don't expect something back, but you will expect, you will feel like, oh my gosh, I owe you. And when I'm
laughing right now because there was a guy who helped me out with something, and then maybe it was in my subconscious, but I decided to work with him. And part of it was because I really appreciated that act of time and value that he gave to me.
That's it. And it's very much, it's a law of reciprocity. It's a psychological thing that we cannot get away from. It's built in us. We cannot feel like we owe anybody anything. We're constantly searching for this equilibrium and balance. So when you hugely tip the scales of your content in one side, so like I have free courses now. Things have changed. They're going.
A LinkedIn course is amazing for anyone who's on here who wants to discover LinkedIn. All right. Ash just created a free LinkedIn course and it's straight value that could have been sold for hundreds of dollars and or thousands of dollars. Like, boom, it's free.
I actually have 6 of these free courses coming out in the next 6 months. I have one a month coming out because of that reason. You know, exactly. I've got LinkedIn, I've got TikTok, I've got a personal branding basics, I've got social media basics, I've got everything because of that reason. It's if you give people so much, you drown them in value. And the way I always talk about this is reciprocity. Reciprocity, the social influence principles work as like this. You only thing that's inside of your control is reciprocity. This feeling of giving without expecting anything back. If you do that, enough people will come to you because they feel like they owe you. So then you're going to get these people reach, which I loved what you said at the beginning, which is like this magnet effect of that's when you'll start getting the messages coming to you saying, Dave, I really love what you're doing. Can we have a chat? I've never once done a cold call to someone, never once actually, because this is his idea. If you're not getting anyone coming in, add more fuel on the fire, keep giving more stuff away. The more stuff you give away, but also define what it is you're going to have for paid. That's very important. Don't give away your paid stuff, but define your free and your paid. If you give enough reciprocity and think of it like a cup of water and you fill that glass of water up, when it overflows, you will hit the next influence principle, which is authority. So authority, you can't be an authority in your space until that cup is overflowing with reciprocity, because enough people, which is what you're getting, Dave, which is amazing, which is this micro influencer feeling, which is people now watch you, they listen to you, you are the guy.
I literally just like subtle humble brag. I like just got a message from this really cool guy and he's like, love what you're putting out in the world and the impact you're making. Keep up the amazing work. And I sent you one of those as well, you know, when we first connected. And it's like those messages really make you feel good. Hopefully you keep your ego in check while you're doing it, but they really make you feel good, like you're actually, you know, going in the right direction and giving. So the way that I phrase it as, if you want to give love unconditionally and value unconditionally, you need to be able to accept value and love unconditionally in return. That can be with healthy boundaries as well. But when someone like that gives me that message, I'm not just going to brush it off. I'm going to really accept it and really show gratitude towards it.
100%. It's that treat others. It's a very basic thing. I just treat others as I'd like to be treated. You know, if I listen to it, which is why me and you started talking, is that if you send me a message saying you like my content, I'm going to respond. I'm not going to go, oh, thanks, great. I'm going to be like, thank you so much. I jump on any calls that people want to call. It's this idea, and this is what people get, like, yes, okay, it's a profitable business. I do very well. It's sustainable. It funds my family and our lifestyle, but I don't do it for the money. I do it for the calls, for the chats, for the understanding, to learn other people every time I have. And that's what people with this reciprocity is, that it opens up doors that you will never, ever imagine, because that type of, you say, love and value that you put into the world has a ripple effect. Like, it is insane, the type of stuff that you, and I'm not a massive fan of the law of attraction. And I know that gets a lot of people in a lot of hot water. I believe in it. Long story, but I believe in it. But it does work. If you do give a lot of people a lot of stuff, you will get a lot of stuff. And that's how you become an authority. And as you become an authority, more people will buy from you. When more people buy from you, you will have social proof. And that will mean that even more people will buy from you, because if 1,000 people follow you, 10,000 people will follow you.
All right. Maybe next time we'll have you on and we'll talk about why you're not a fan of the law of attraction. But we got a few more questions I want to run through before you jump off. I know you got another call. So the first one is Seth Godin. Okay. He goes, there's one thing that most marketers do wrong. And they're selfish, infantile narcissists who believe that our need for more and our desire for attention trumps everything else. They justify and rationalize their work and interrupt people, spam people, yell at people, deceive people again and again and again. Whereas successful marketers are successful because they don't do that. And it turns out that is scarce. The folks who are willing to build a story that's true, to earn permission to build a product that spreads merely because it's remarkable is almost non-existent. What are your thoughts on that?
Completely agree. Completely agree. I would like. I think it's Seth Godin's an incredible guy. So it's one of those like he I couldn't agree more. I think I say this to lots of people is we need to leave our egos at the door if you're trying to build anything, especially anything online like a brand. We go back to the attention span, 8 seconds or whatever. Don't like too many people are precious about their own stuff. They want everyone to watch their videos. They want everyone to listen to. I couldn't give a shit if you listen to my videos or podcast because it's a slow burner. As Seth Cohen said then, it's a slow burner. It's not about look at me, look at me, look at me. You should spend 20% of your time making content, 80% of your time seeing how you can help other people. That's what I believe, because I think that for those exact reasons, too many people are doing it. And it's so funny. There's an amazing way. It's so broken that it's like easy. Like you look at it, it's like looking at the back end of the Matrix. You're like, are you all really seriously thinking this spammy messages are going to work? So I think it's a brilliant opportunity if you're built that way to really take advantage of it.
You know, usually when those guys send me those messages, I think, wow, we really need to work together at some point, but the relationship's not going to be what you expect it will be.
Very true.
Another one is, how do you build a tribe from scratch? So I saw that you created a new Facebook group, and in a matter of a few days, it shot up to 500 members. Okay, something that I'm trying to get to. I got this slow burn right now. It was actually funny what you just said, because I've got a lot of calls this week, and I want to be creating more content. So when you say that, drop down your content, give, it makes me feel better, okay, about the week that I've got ahead.
Yeah.
But in terms of building a tribe from scratch, like, how did you do it? How do you just shoot up to 500 members in a matter of a few days, for example?
Again, it looks like it's this. I've had a lot of people say to me recently, gosh, I feel like you've appeared overnight. And it just hasn't been overnight. It's been a long, long time. It's been from the moment I had that beer with my dad at the comedy club. That's when it started. I think to build a tribe, what I started to think about with that build a tribe, build a following, was, I think of it again, law of attraction, but like vibration, like slam your kind of flag in the ground, project your message, and people will come. That is how you do it from ground zero. There's no other way. It's consistency over intensity. It's about showing up every single day and adding small bite-sized chunks of information and really being, unless we talk about clarity, giving clarity on what it is you do. When I first started talking about marketing and branding, it really started with branding and more kind of personal development. Really, it started in that area. It was not talking about anything else. It takes time, and that's really hard. Every time you take that ego, you think you've got, you build. The biggest thing I see, and I'm like this myself, is I've built a following on LinkedIn. That's my main following. My podcast does very, very well now. It didn't for a long time, but it does really well now. We were like 14th in the marketing charts at one point, which was cool, and which is mad. We got like all these other people in there. We dropped off the charts.
What was the pivot there? When did it start doing better? Was there a guest that you had on?
Yeah, I had a guest.
What happened?
I had a guest on who just, do you know what it was? It was the solo episodes I did 10 episodes of solo. And then I had Lee Flanagan on, which is the one that you listen to. It's hard, but Lee's got a huge following here in the UK. And he brought an army of people with him. And when that spread, loads of them stayed. And that was when I started like ranking, and I got like ranked number 1 on the keyword search for personal branding on all of the platforms. And then it just went boom, 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 boom again. But if I'm honest with you, I had just as much fun recording it. All my best episodes are in my first 10. They really are. I believe that. I do believe that. A
lot of podcasts, if you go back and you see the best episodes, they're the root of the podcast.
All the ones you
I-
send
I-
me are every time you send me one and you go, I've been listening to this, it's great. And all of the ones that people quote me on are all the first 10, all of them.
I can't say that about my own because I started out with the camera in the bottom left-hand corner of my Dell computer. All right. Didn't really know what I was doing. And you know what? I wanted to use this as an example for people that would come to me that wanted to work with me. And I wanted them to see that you don't need a fancy camera to get started. Okay. You don't need high caliber guests on your podcast to get started. All you need to do is start somewhere and start producing content. And now my content is actually getting better. It's actually like, bigger names are starting to come on. More people are coming to work with me. So it's kind of a different direction.
It's interesting though, because my first episode, I didn't know. My first episode is my most downloaded episode, which I really, really wish I'd known. Looking back, I sat with a mobile phone. And I put it like yourself. I propped my iPhone up against. It was an iPhone 7 as well, I think, or it was an iPhone 6. I hadn't upgraded at that point, so it was a really crappy old phone, plugged in with the headset. And I recorded myself, and I propped up against a mug, and I recorded myself talking about personal branding. And all you can hear is it going on my beard. And it's the
that's what that fuzz was.
That's what the fucking fuzz is all the time. And I did that. And but yeah, like when you talk about that, it was the most downloaded episode. It's what people quote me on. But on all honesty, you're saying about how do you build a tribe and a brand from nowhere? Turn up every single day and do it. It was and be comfortable being uncomfortable. I started up on Twitter, TikTok. I said 8 weeks ago, with 0, and it sucks. Like it sucks when you're like, and also a little bit of success. I'm not very successful. I've got a little bit of success in comparison to where I'd like to be, and a little bit of success is a bad thing because you get a bit of an ego. You start going,
ooh,
do you know who I am? On TikTok, I was like starting to justify, like, well, do you know I've got this? Do you know I have this podcast and it does really well? Like I get that all the time. When I left my ego at the door, TikTok blew up again, and now we're 8 weeks in, about 3.5 million views. And but I had to leave my ego at the door again, and I think that's what I'd say with everybody is leave the ego at the door, do the work, put out every single day. And this is where the vibrations thing I will give it is put every single day, put your vibrations out there, and they will come, but it won't happen overnight.
Yeah, you don't want to admit it, but you're a believer in the law of attraction.
Oh, I'm a big believer in it. I just don't like that's. We'll talk about that another one, I think. But I'm a believer of it. I just think that too many idiots take it and as if I sit here, stuff will happen. And I'm like, no. You put the effort in and you send out those signals, and it will come.
Well, as I'm going to quote 2 of the guys I've had on this podcast. My first mentor, he talks about flow being the discipline, the convergence of discipline and surrender. Okay. So you do need not only surrender, you also need discipline. And also Harris, we had on the podcast a few weeks ago, and we were talking about devotion and being humbled towards your devotion. And for example, on TikTok, you start to feel humbled, but you're incredibly devoted to what you're doing. And you start to see that the progress is not going to stop. It's just going to accelerate the more you drop your ego and you humble yourself. All right. With that being said, the question I ask most of the guests in this podcast, and I know you have a wife and a kid. So how do you want to evolve your brand and your business? Okay. You talked about, you just have a little tip of the iceberg of success. What would, a massive success mean if you were able to evolve your business?
For me, I have like a 20-year goal. Always have done. I've got loads of little goals but my goal is to be the #1 practitioner in personal branding in the world in 2 decades. I want to get an honorary degree. This is like these things. I want to be so well known in this field, so deep that that I'm the guy. When you think personal branding, you think of me. Now, Gary Vaynerchuk is the guy, so that's a big one to beat. But I've got 20 years, so we'll see. But I wake up, that is the fire that wakes up me every single day. So I get up at 5 a.m. Everything I do is either to be with my family or to take me one step closer towards that being a goal, which that might be making a program, that might be releasing content. That's what me and you spoke about before about my pricing models. It's the same thing. Everything is reverse engineered for a long, infinite game to get me to be the guy that everyone globally knows as personal branding.
And the cool thing is, you don't have to be Gary Vee. You can be Ash Borland. And that's what it's all about.
100%.
So how are they going to find you? What's your favorite platform right now for them to reach out?
Yeah, favorite platform. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, always have been. So connect if you want to connect with me on a more of a business level, LinkedIn is the best place because it's where I do a lot of work. It's where I do a lot of stuff. If you want more value, TikTok is big. It's all at Ash Borland. There's loads. All my free courses are on my website, and my paid courses and my coaching is on my website, which is www.ashborland.com. There's a ton of that available, and the YouTube channel and podcast has now been rebranded to Personal Branding Secrets recently from an SEO point of view. So if you want to check that out as well, we'll do that. I know that we'll definitely be getting Dave on. I'll get Dave onto the show, so that'll be good.
Beautiful. And you guys know the only cost of the podcast is to like, comment, and share it with a friend if you found any value in this episode. And I'm sure there was tons of value in this episode. So thank you, Ash, for jumping on, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
My pleasure, mate.